Hi guys, welcome to Westmonster Uncensored. I'm Michael Heaver. A very special edition today. I'm joined by Fishing for Leave's Aaron Brown. And Aaron, how are you doing?
Much.
You've had a busy morning, haven't you?
We have indeed, fresh from the Thames.
Can you let the guys know what you're doing this morning?
Well, we've been out and about in the Thames again with Nigel, Jacob Rees-Mogg, Anne-Marie Trevelyan, Craig McKinley and Ross Thompson, who all did very well in supporting us. And it was really to get the message out there that this capitulation to the transition deal, we wouldn't call it a deal, I would call it a surrender, is of grave threat to what's left of the UK fishing industry. So we're out there to get that message out there.
Okay, right. Can you just give people a rundown of where are we with Brexit, with fisheries? Obviously such a big part of that Leave campaign.
Yeah.
Where are we now? What's the state of play?
Well, really what the government signed up to is a death sentence for what's left of the UK fishing industry. This doesn't just apply to fishing, it applies to whole other swathes of our national life, where now the EU has us as effectively a vassal state. We've all heard that before, where we have to obey all EU laws, including new ones, with no say. We have no escape. The EU can do to us what they please. And specifically to fishing, that means they can implement detrimental legislation to cull what's left of our fleet. And then they can use international law that says if you can't catch your own fish, you've got to give it to your neighbours. Okay. So the EU's got every incentive to stick the knife in, and there's a whole range of policies, especially the quota system and the discards, that they could really use to screw us over. And then that's it. We'll lose our fishing industry forever. We'll be the first island nation in history not to have a fishing industry.
So we know about the long-term plight of the British fishing industry. We've seen the transition agreement, the draft agreement between the European Union and the UK. What do you make of it?
It's an absolute capitulation. I mean, ultimately, the only thing that's changed since it was first announced all those months ago is that every single one of the government's red lines has been rubbed out. And of course, we've got the absolutely weak, pathetic excuses of Michael Gove that, oh yes, I promised that by 2021 we'll be out. Well, you promised it in 2019 we'd be out. What effectively the government's done, and Ross Thompson conveyed this well, is we will officially leave the EU under Article 50, and then 2 seconds later we'll join up to a new, worse deal where effectively we're a puppet state. And that's really what the government's capitulated to. And for fishing it's bad, but there's a whole load of other areas. They're trying to screw the City of London as well. So yeah, really this country's staring down a really dark place.
Yeah, we've got Mark Taylor. Thanks very much for your comment, Mark, saying giving away millions, not just in money, but also in jobs, not a good move. We've got Leslie on Facebook saying, thank you very much for your comment, Leslie, saying fishing was a major factor for me. We stand by the fishermen. We want out now. Kay, obviously not happy as well, saying this is an absolute joke. We did not vote just to give the EU control of our waters. We should leave now with no deal. Tanis saying we all back you. Lots of supportive comments in it. No. I mean, what would you like to see happen now?
Well, now we're going to go in the front foot of the fishing industry and really ramp it up, hopefully again to maybe another flotilla. Although hopefully it'll be this time.
This is critical now.
This is critical
because if this doesn't happen, if this is carried forward, what will it mean for all those British fishermen?
Well, if this is carried forward, as I say, what the EU will do is enforce policy that's already in the pipeline, and the main one is this: people need to bear with us. The current CFP hasn't worked because it's a failed policy because of the systems that's there, mainly the quota system. Of course, everybody's seen where fishermen are forced to discard the wrong species of fish that they don't have quota for to find what they're allowed to keep. Yeah. So that's bad for the fishermen because you're having to catch more to land less. It's bad for the environment because you're killing more than you need to. It's totally unsustainable, bad for science. And what the EU's done is said, not address the problem, that their system doesn't work, they're just going to ban the symptom, the discards. And what happens now is when the boat uses up its lowest quota, it has to stop fishing. Okay. And that's called a choke species. And of course what that means is folk will have to stop fishing really early in the year. The government has its own reports that show 60% of Britain's fish would go uncaught. A similar proportion of the fleet would go bust because of that. And then obviously the EU's got every incentive to do that, because if we can't catch our fish and are tied up, they can claim it. So we're really in a real bad position here.
Lots of comments rolling in here. We've got Leroy on Twitter. Thank you very much for your comment, Leroy. It's a disgusting example of how bad this government is. Megan with an interesting one here. Will CFP transition lay groundwork for permanent membership? This isn't what I voted for. Do you think long term?
Well, from speaking to MPs, what they're hugely concerned about, it's a really good question, well done. But MPs are seriously concerned because there is no guillotine clause at the end of this transition. There's nothing that says everything ceases to apply like Article 50. And what happens is there's a convention called the Vienna Convention and Treaties that regulates agreements between countries, and it says in Article 70 that the rights and obligations that are established under a treaty keep rolling unless the parties agree are as stated. So obviously currently just now, as we've heard, the EU can't claim money from us if we don't want to pay it or any of the rest, because they said the treaty ceases to apply with Article 50. This new transition treaty has no clause like that. So when we get to the end of the transition, the EU can say, well, you re-agreed to the CFP, regulation for the City of London, etc., etc. We want our rights and obligations. And even if they were proved wrong, a protracted legal fight against the pathetically weak government we have, they just hold us as some sort of puppet and try and screw us in every way they could. So that's a really good question. I would say not only, please, it's been great support from people at home, lobby your MP, shout and scream, for fishing's a good example, but also that there needs to be a clean get-out clause to this transition, or we'll end up with an indefinite transition forevermore and never leave properly.
Well, Westmonster's going to keep highlighting this, guys, so go to westmonster.com/support if you want to support us. We've been doing lots on fisheries. We're going to keep helping these guys out and doing what we can and really trying to raise this up the political agenda. Just going to go to a few of your comments now. We've got, and I would love your reaction to these comments. Aaron, Charlie saying, clean break, no more nonsense, out now. Barry Burr, what happened to no deal being better than a bad deal? Stephen Palfrey saying, David Davis is a sellout to Brexit. Anyone part of this deal is a traitor.
100 years ago, you'd have been shot at the Tower of London for signing up to something like this.
To play devil's advocate here, because there's a huge amount of, I mean, guys, I can tell you lot are seething here. To play devil's advocate then, what about if the government say, well, you know, actually this is only going to be short term? It means that by 2021 the transition ends, things will then change, and there's light at the end of the tunnel. Does that not? Is that not something that
they're not putting a guillotine clause in? And you and I know why, because we've got a Europhile, common-purpose bunch of civil servants who were signed up to sell this country out before and are still desperate to do it now, Brexit or not. So there's no guillotine clause there. That's deliberate. As we say, the EU can try and do severe damage to us, not just fishing in the 21 months. And then the other big thing about it as well is that the continuity of rights. But the big question in all this that I want to know and nobody can answer is, what benefit are we actually getting from a transition? What is it that we get that we couldn't get on with ourselves? And I think really MPs have got to live up to the rhetoric that no deal is better than a bad deal, because this is a bloody terrible one.
Well, we're going to play a clip now. I'm sure you know this geezer. We'll roll the clip and get Aaron's reaction on this.
All right, I'll go.
Our proposal to the EU was that during the implementation period, we would sit alongside other coastal states as a third country and equal partner in annual quota negotiations. And in making that case, we did so after full consultation with representatives of the fisheries industry. We pressed hard during negotiations to secure this outcome, and we are disappointed that the EU were not willing to move on this. However, it is the case that thanks to the hard work of our negotiating team, that the text was amended from the original proposal, and the Commission have agreed to amendments to the text.
So there we go, Michael Gove. We pressed hard during the negotiations to secure this outcome. We are disappointed that the EU were not willing to move on this. Aaron, your reaction to that?
What a load of bunkum. There was nothing to negotiate. Article 50 said it ceased. We had our fishing in our pocket. We would have walked away. We had nothing. We would have left under Article 50. They agreed it, and we'd have become like Iceland, Norway, free and independent to manage our own waters and resources whilst working with our neighbours. So there was nothing to negotiate. And when the EU put that demand in, the British government should have said, no. That's all they had to say. It's a symbolic issue for us. Might be symbolic for you. But do you want to collapse the talks over that? And they've caved in. And are enraged just now, and we'll have a few things. We hope people can support them. You guys will obviously.
Well, it's Fishing for Leave is your organisation. Just for guys that do want to support you, it's Fishing for Leave. You obviously campaigned a lot during the referendum, and now you're pushing through. But
well, we emptied the tank during the referendum, obviously with the flotilla. It cost a lot because that was the one chance to get out before we were mangled, and now they're going to put us back in for an additional 21 months. And no, people are enraged, and it's a case that no deal's better than a bad deal.
Tory MP saying the other day, I'll vote down Brexit deal if it doesn't include complete control of fisheries. We can get the story up there. So this was the Scottish Conservative MP, John Lamont. Very clear, let me be absolutely clear, as we leave the EU, we need complete control over UK fishing. He was asked explicitly, will you vote down the final deal if it does not include total control of fish stocks and vessel access? He was very clear, he said yes. So interesting for me now that you've got this situation where you could potentially see Conservative MPs on this issue of fishing vote against Brexit.
I think they need to, but the problem is, we saw John yesterday. I hope he's not slid back the way somebody said he had. I hope not.
What did he say to you?
He's enraged by this, and rightly so. But the big problem is the whips are obviously going round, the powers that be, the establishment, desperately telling them all to back down. And I mean, you've got people going around Westminster saying, "Oh, how do we sell it?" I mean, is that not terrible? You're meant to govern a country in a way that you're doing the right thing, not trying to sell a pig with lipstick on it.
Where to go from this? Are you going to be pushing now
No.
to try and change this? Do you think this is dead set?
Well,
is there anything you can do? Do you think?
It's dead set because the EU's obviously put it in.
It's in the draft agreement.
It's in the draft agreement.
Yeah.
It's marked down as green, and there's no real way for the government to get it out now and go back. They've not got the courage to get it out, and really it is now a case of no deal's better than a bad deal. We either capitulate or we walk away.
Well, Rosanna and a lot of you guys come and flood in with comments. Do keep them coming. If you're enjoying what you're seeing, by the way, guys, do give us a retweet. Do give us a like. Do visit westmonster.com/support. We've got, Rosanna and lots of other people now saying no deal, defo better than this deal.
Yeah.
I mean, is that now your feeling?
Yeah,
You don't want a deal now?
No. Walk away. At the end of the day, as was highlighted during the referendum, what we'll incur in the cost of tariffs is less than what our membership fee is. You're not meant to do it legally, but the government can set up in roundabout ways tariff relief for the businesses most afflicted. Obviously, the national average is 5%. Some people aren't subject to tariffs, some more so, but the government could manage it. But they've not bothered their arse.
Just for those guys, and thank you very much for watching, guys. If you've just joined us, I just want to go. If you could give people just a brief overview over, just for people from the outside who maybe don't know that, they have a broad idea that the fishing industry has been hurt by the European Union. But where are we now? What are you so dismayed by? What do you want to see done?
Well, the biggest thing is the EU policy has been ill-founded since its inception, and it's gone up a cul-de-sac of trying to regulate more and more and more to try and make a bad system work. And as we've seen coastal communities denigrated, fleet slowly collapsing. It's been attritional, just kind of death by 1,000 cuts. So Brexit was a great chance to get out of that. The big problem now is obviously the quota system causes discards. When a discard ban comes in, it doesn't address the cause of the problem, the system, it bans the symptom. And that means boats have to tie up when they exhaust their lowest quota, which is why the fleet goes bust. We need to get out, walk away. We can get new UK policy in. We've developed models for it. We've taken it to civil servants. They're playing Sir Humphrey with it. People watch Westminster. You'll see how the government actually works. It's not a comedy, it's fact. We've got whole new systems there to go. We've been asking the government to pilot new systems, so we've got options there for getting out and put in a new decent UK policy that will take back control of that 6 to 8 billion and manage our resources really well, and we could be a leading fishing nation again.
Now, obviously, you were there this morning with Nigel Farage. You were throwing fish into the sea. What can you describe? Why were you doing that?
Well, that was to highlight the ineptitude of the current system and how fishermen are forced to throw away half of the fish they catch to find what they can keep to meet bureaucratic targets. So instead of working with Mother Nature and reacting to her, we're trying to hit self-imposed targets. That obviously leads to discarding. And the instance there, that was haddocks. The current if we were an independent state in the English Channel where those fish came from, we should get 60% of the internationally agreed fishing limits. Just now we only get 9% as part of the EU. So fishermen in the southwest are dumping, one boat or one of our guys dumped 600 tonnes of haddock last year. That's
this is an environmental disaster.
It's 1.8 million portions of fish.
So where are the Green Party and sort of environmental lobby in all of this? Why this is an environmental disaster, isn't it? This is the EU.
It is, but they love the EU.
But they love the EU. So that's clearly the allegiance that comes first.
Yeah.
Guys, if you like what you see, do give us a retweet, do give us a like, dive in with your comments, and please visit westmonster.com/support. We need your support. A few more comments now. Paul Wood saying 17.4 million Brexiteers, blood boiling. And he wrote it in capitals. So Paul is clearly very hacked off, and he wants people to know about it.
Get stuck in, Paul, my son. Well done.
We got Dawn as well saying our fishermen have been betrayed. The plan is to decimate our fleets by quotas and draconian restrictions. If this does go ahead, what does the future look like for Britain's fishing fleet?
What you'll have, and obviously some of the big kind of corporate interests in the industry that run a couple of organisations the government consults with all the time because it suits their agenda. What you'll end up with is a very small, or you'll end up with a consolidation of the fleet to a very few bigger companies that can weather the storm, and then we'll just have a few company boats. Obviously, one of the biggest travesties, you see some of the Remainers trying to say, but British fishermen sold their quota. Well, is it not shameful that they were put in such a bad position they had no other way out but to sell up? And what then happened is the government allowed foreign fishing companies in Europe to buy British quota. And you've got a situation now where not only does the EU member states under their own flag catch 60% of the fish in Britain's waters, but 47% of the quota in England is held by foreign companies.
Well, it's not pretty, is it? I just want to finish now, guys. Any more final comments, throw them in. Do give us a like, do give us a retweet, as I said. Do visit westmonster.com/support if you want to support us. I just want to finish. I mean, can you just tell the people, you know, what's the future like for British fishing? What do you want to see done, and how can people support Fishing for Leave?
I think the future looks grim with this transition. If we walk away and the government scrambles to put new UK policy in, we could have a really bright future. We could see thriving coastal communities again, boats coming back in, markets, electronic market. You could have a really, really good community-based, family-based, which was the strength of the British industry. So we're really coming up to the last kind of fork in the road. The government's nearly gone down the bad one, but they can still swerve on to do the right thing. We need your support. Retweet us, follow us on Facebook, get the message out there. Write to your MPs. We'll put out template letters for people to sign. Anybody that can donate to us, that would be a huge support, because we're obviously all self-funded off our own backs. Just anything that people can do. You might not think it matters, but some of the MPs are decent, not that many, but badger them. They work for you, not the other way around. Get on top of them and get in no uncertain terms. If you vote through this deal, fishing, as we've said through the conversation, there's other areas, even the City of London, it could get creamed. Tell those MPs, if they vote this deal through, they will be out on their backside in the next election. It actually made me laugh. It was actually, if there was ever a summary of how pitiful politics of such a great nation and great people has fallen down to, it was an SNP who want to be in Europe, slagging off a Secretary of State who had the temerity to say to them they were sellouts. Well, who's the pot and who's the kettle?
Look, Aaron, it's been great to have you on the show. Thanks very much for your time, mate.
Super. Thank you all.
Thanks very much for your support, guys. Give us a retweet, give us a like. Go to westmonster.com/support. Uncensored is back on Friday at 1 o'clock. We'll see you there. Have a great week.